Alright, everyone. I think we are live. And with that, I welcome you to the first live broadcast of Contact Lost with me, Tweak, the host of The Late Night Tweak. The show, if you're familiar with the previous episode, the show where I aim to discuss the topics that either didn't make it to the main issue of our show, or maybe we did not devote enough attention to the topic, and it deserves some expanding. And this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So, if you are on YouTube, if you're watching it during the stream, or maybe you're tuning in later and watching the video, today I have a very specific topic that we were discussing in the past. You might want to find that episode on our channel because we did cover mental health in 40k. We did cover it with Scary and with Joker, Scary from Scarcast. He came to talk about his experience, and I think the thing with that episode is I'm very happy that we did it. It was fantastic to work with Scary. He's an awesome person. However, I think that his presence has taken a little bit away from the content of what we wanted to talk about. And that's fantastic as well because he brought a lot of his experience. But behind that, there was some research that I conducted that I wanted to publish as well. And I sort of did on our Instagram and so on, but I don't think it got the attention that it deserved. Um, so I'm bringing this back now because I think that the topic of mental health, the topic of burnout in 40k is still a thing, and it's not going away anywhere anytime soon. So today's episode will be about mental health. What we did back in October was an episode for which I prepared for quite a while. I created a survey. I took the survey asking you guys, so asking people on the internet, in the public Discord. I've also sent the links to some celebrities on the internet, and I got their assurance that they have participated in it. We've collected about 113 responses to that survey. There were several questions that you're going to see on the screen in a couple of moments, and basically we analyzed those answers. Now, you might want to well, we might say 113 is not really a lot. It's not probably indicative of anything. Perhaps yes, but on the other hand, I haven't heard of anyone else doing a survey and collecting that many answers. And from experience, I know that hearing things like this brings comfort to some people who are in this situation, and finding out, for example, that there are other people dealing with similar issues, it helps. It gives them, as I said, some comfort. So that's why we are doing it. And to be perfectly honest, I did that episode in the first place back in October just because I wanted some like a cathartic experience for myself as well. Because back in when did we come back? I think it was September, maybe August. This was the time when I came back from a year-long hiatus. I think that's how you pronounce it. Because I've been away from the hobby for a year because I felt burnout. There were a couple of things that annoyed me. I just couldn't stay in the hobby anymore. So I decided to take a break. I sold the army. It was a tough. I mean, that decision was tough. The decision to quit the hobby was tough. It's what was supposed to be forever, but as we know, the plastic crack is addictive, and everyone comes back every now and again. I asked the people around what the state of the game was. They said it was quite okay, so I gave it a try, and I fell back in love with the hobby again. But it seems that it's the topic of burnout, the topic of taking a break, the topic of mental health, and even depression related to the hobby is something that more people wanted to share. So I feel like we will be doing those people justice, the 113 participants of our survey, by talking about it in detail and going through the questions. And I'll have some comments to those answers. Some of the answers I'll just leave on the screen so you can see for yourself. Basically, and yeah, I think I'll jump into it. So let me bring that to the front so that you can see the survey as well. I think I now might have disappeared from the screen, so give me a second, I'll be back in just a moment. I'm still learning how to do this, so yay, I'm here, and let's get our logo so that people who tune in, they know what they are watching. So yeah, here is the logo. All right, so this is the survey. I can't remember how many questions exactly there are, but this is a document that I got from the survey website with all the information that we managed to collect, both in graphics form and comments. So we'll be going through those questions, and hopefully you can find something that you can relate to. Also, before we do this, leave a like, subscribe, because this will help us grow. This will help us reach new audiences. I also hope that with this visual new form, maybe more people will be willing to follow us. So yeah. So let us know what you think. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know what you think about this topic. I'm keen to. I read all the comments, and we've had some messages. By the way, yeah, I forgot to mention, some of you have actually messaged us either via email or via Instagram to let us know that this topic is important for you as well, and that you would like to hear more. So that, like, this isn't out of the blue that I'm coming back to it. It's also sort of by demand that we are doing it. So yeah, the survey. As you can see, the first question is quite a generic question, but it only shows like what's the demographic of people participating in the hobby. So I won't be going very much into it. However, the most significant group, as you can see in the yellow, is the 25 to 34, which means that those are people who are probably establishing, the majority will be the people establishing families, starting the new life with their spouse, maybe children, and so on and so on. So there are multiple, let's say, distractions from the hobby that you can have: starting a new job, taking a mortgage, buying a car, or whatnot. So of course there will be people who don't belong to that group. I mean, are not burdened with everything that I just mentioned, but I think if we generalize, that's what the demographic would be. 35-44, that's me, that's my group. So the second largest, and then representation from all the other age groups. So that's about it. You get a nifty little percentage division. Then we go to the first question that really matters, although I should say all questions matter, but the first one that has some content to it. Have you ever felt burnout with regards to Warhammer 40k? An overwhelming amount of answers went to yes, and then there were three kinds of answers that I allowed here. First one was yes, no, and then the last one was perhaps not burnout, but any emotion ranging from feeling down to downward depression. So for the people who were not really able to name the emotions that they felt, or this, like this, the spectrum of things that was happening to them. So the third answer is for those people, and this is the also the interesting part, because there were some comments. Some people chose not to leave a comment, but you will see in here that yeah, generally feeling down and not finding fun in games, feeling down or frustrated. We will go deeper into that, because there were people indicated a lot of reasons for frustration. Feeling down towards the hobby. I'll translate the Polish ones. So anger. I was let down by the state of the meta. I was missing opponents on a high level. So you can see the spectrum already, even with those few answers, is quite broad. The level of emotional and mental fatigue I feel after the 5-round 2-day tournament normally leaves me not wanting to play games, which is also understandable. I've been in that situation the first time I decided to quit the hobby, because the break that I had last year was not the first one. The first break that I had from the hobby was after having a nightmarish experience at a master tournament. Master tournament meaning a 2-day tournament, 5 games. That's our standard in Poland. Uh, I played Dark Eldar in 7th edition, and I think I had a streak of 27 lost games in a row because the army, together with orcs, they were like at the bottom of the meta, I think. While other armies were getting the Curians and the demi companies and so on. So yeah, I came back from the tournament with a migraine, knackered, and not willing to roll dice anymore ever. So yeah, so I took a break then, and I can completely relate to the comment in here. Um, Another thing, I'm not a psychologist, so so going very deep into those comments probably wouldn't even be appropriate for me. However, I I am trained in those topics as a manager in a company, so I can say something and I can comment a little bit on that. And as part of the series in the future, I plan to talk about many topics related to mental health in 40k, and hopefully those things will be useful for you not only within the game or in the context of 40k, but also like in everyday life. And I intend to have an episode or a couple of episodes about mood and mood swings and the mood elevator, and how you can improve, or how you can read your mood, adjust your mood, and maybe go into a tournament or into a game with a better attitude. So things to do, things to avoid. Let me know if you're interested in that, and if you want to hear more about that. Or you know, maybe I shouldn't do an episode like that. Let me know. I would like to find out. So, okay, what are the most common reasons for you feeling that way? And now this is when it starts to get interesting. 7 people skipped this question. I don't blame them. But yeah, we have. So here you have the graphic representation, and obviously, it did seem obvious before the survey, but the survey confirmed that power creep and the meta shift is the biggest issue. And it's no wonder. You invest a lot of money into the hobby. You invest a lot of time into preparing your models, painting them, and so on and so on. And then a new release renders your army useless. For example, either because it's a direct nerf to your army, or because uh, your army just doesn't have the staying power to survive on the table because other armies are just so powerful. I think this is, although this survey was created in October, so the meta wasn't in a fantastic place, but I think this applies uh, generally all the time. So we can see that now as well with Tyranids, I think, getting like a over 60% win rate. I can clearly understand how people are getting tired of this and impatient, especially when this comes after Tau domination, Custodes domination. Um, what else was there? Tau, Custodes, Tyranids, Harlequins, obviously. So yeah, so it just seems that every new army needs to be even more powerful than the previous one, and it's on one hand good, I guess, because people who play those armies, like those diehard fans of a single faction, they get their spotlight. They get their time in the spotlight, and it's great. Until a thing that we probably will see later, until it lasts for so long and is so prevalent that other players actually make them feel bad about winning. But we will get to that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So the second part, the second reason is lack of time. And lack of time, I'll just scroll down to the answers because you can see them in full there. So lack of time due to work, family, etc. That was my thing. That was one of my main reasons why I quit last year, or the year before that, and it lasted for a year, because I just couldn't get the time I wanted to play. I had an army that I wanted to master, but I couldn't really master it because I could play once every 2 weeks or something like that, or maybe once a week. That was not enough. Starting every single game, I knew it was like starting a new army. So I needed to recall the rules, compare. I was frustrated as well because other players in the Polish community, in our north of Poland community, they were getting many more reps in, and I just couldn't do that. So obviously, when I went to a competition, I didn't stand a chance because, and for me, it was like learning an army from scratch. For them, it was like a Wednesday or a Saturday. So lack of time, and I think this is many people, 41 respondents said that they suffer from lack of time. In time, from time perspective, I can tell you that it can change, but we will get to um, you know the ideas how to improve the situation later, and I'll give you some positive insights into this as well. But first, let's focus on the answers to the question, like what are the reasons for feeling like that. I'm just going to jump through this because, as I said, here you have better view. Um, so this answer, we are all different, and it's personal, so feel free to share your story here. Uh, you'll see in a moment that there are plenty of answers, actually 33, where people decided to leave their own insights, so we'll get to that in a moment. So changes of rules in new edition, I think it's a little bit in line with power creep, so 32 people. Toxic players, they happen everywhere, they happen in every hobby. Unfortunately, um, and the only thing that you can really do against that is to either avoid them or build some resilience, or in like notorious cases, I don't know, maybe seek some authority during tournaments, etc. Because players like that really shouldn't be welcome to events. So yeah, we all should strive to not be toxic players, and I also find it hard at times, especially if you have a 27 losses streak. But yeah, do your best and don't be a toxic player. Having too high expectations. Again, that was the thing about me. Like I really expected a lot from myself. I get to play against Joker. I get to play against some other prominent players in Poland, and for example, I felt that my army is strong, or that I've built it in a strong way, but then I came to the table and it just didn't play out the way I wanted. And since it's connected to the lack of time, so when I played once a week, once a week or once every 2 weeks. So this is a hobby. You do it to relax. You do it to get satisfaction. You do it for fun. Now, if you go to a table and you play a game and you don't really enjoy it, and oh my god, you lose, it's like, I don't know if you've ever been around anyone who does betting, like sports betting and so on. It's the same feeling, like when you have a little, like you've bet for 20 games, for example, and I don't know, you're left with the last one. So 19 are exactly as you tried to bet, so like wins, losses, and so on. And then you're left with that last game, and Manchester United is playing, I don't know, Aston Villa, and you're betting that Manchester United is going to win, and then Manchester United draws against Villa, and it breaks your entire what do you call it, like this bit, and you could win like 10 grand, but you're getting nothing because of that one game, because of a draw. Um, there is a syndrome. I don't know what the name of that syndrome is, but like the loser syndrome or something like that, where a person who bets, who is in that situation, they will be miserable for a couple of days, and they need time to recover to actually be able to play again. And it was the same for me. I would go play a game where I would have someone over and we would play a game, and then I would lose and I would be miserable for a couple of days. I wouldn't even want to look at my army, not to mention, play another game immediately or something like that. So I completely understand. I completely relate to having high or too high expectations. Bad results at tournaments, naturally, you're doing your best to have fun. You're doing your best to enjoy. We all do it for sport. And if you get bad results, it's a cop block. You don't really feel like doing it anymore. And if it happens over and over, uh, you can start feeling burnout, especially again if you take into account power creep. So all those answers in this survey really intertwine and mix, because you get bad results in tournaments also because of power creep, and there's nothing or very little you can do because your army is not as powerful as it used to be. You're not getting the value for your money, because another army is now at the top, and you just go to a tournament hoping for something good, but suddenly it turns out that there is another army that absolutely destroys you. So yeah, I completely again understand. I don't play often. Games need to be of quality. If they're not, I feel down. So it's probably related to those high expectations as well. Sometimes we forget that we do it for fun, and fun should be in. I mean, fun means different things to different people, because to some people, fun is just playing a game. To some people, fun is playing a game of Crusade, or like what's the word? A narrative game. For some, fun is to win tournaments or to win games. So if you're not getting that, then you're not getting the satisfaction that you were looking for. Peer pressure. There is, I think we'll see that in a comment in a moment. That somebody complained that there is something like either a dick measuring contest between players. And I can sometimes see that, for example, in our Polish Discord as well. That there are players who play the same army and they like do dick fencing about who's a better player or who did something better or something like that. So that's one kind of peer pressure where you're part of that discussion, or even a bystander, but you listen to it and you see this little circle jerk of guys who like want to, it's like looking at jocks from an American university or high school or something, from the football team, who just go, yeah, I'm better, I'm bigger, and my army is better, it fights better, shoots better, and it's just not very pleasant to be around. Or it could be uh, in a smaller circle, for example. We have that again. We have like our little chats where we sit with other people, and in those chats, everyone, like, especially if it's a competitive environment, in that competitive environment, people wind up, they prepare for a tournament, expectations grow. So again, it's connected to what we've talked about in the past, and there is this artificial pressure that you have to go to a tournament and have a good result, which is not exactly true, and sometimes it gets out of control, especially if we have tournaments that are not big, that are just local RTTs and so on. Nothing happens if you don't win. You don't have to win everything, but we just get wound up and we get into that rat race within the hobby where we try to be the best, even though an RTT probably should be. I mean, it's fun to win, of course, but I use RTTs to practice lists and to see what works and what doesn't. So, but still, this peer pressure is definitely something that can sit in the back of your head and make it not fun for you. Sinking too deep. That's a very interesting one. Too many forums, podcasts, YouTube, and so on. And now this is, let me see. I can relate to that as well. Because, how to explain this? Our hobby has grown, right? Our hobby has grown significantly. It has developed a lot over the years. Many people have much more media presence than they used to have, or generally you hear more about 40K in the social media everywhere. There are groups, subgroups, discords, YouTube channels. You can become a patron. You can follow different content creators. And content creators are especially interesting because some people figured out that they could capitalize on a couple of things. Capitalize on their appearance, capitalize on their skills, capitalize on their teaching skills. So they have coaching, they offer coaching and so on. They train people. Um, so we have celebrities now. We have celebrities in the hobby, and that's great. That's fantastic because celebrities are usually good for any kind of medium because they pull you up. You measure your performance against them. They are like a benchmark. You want to catch up with them sometimes. It may lead to too high expectations at times. Because it's the same like in let's say real life outside of the game. We have celebrities who star in films. They are beautiful, so we want to be as beautiful as they are. We follow their endorsements. We buy the products that apparently or supposedly they use, and so on. Um, and it's the same here. We have those beautiful people who play games, and we keep forgetting that they devote their life to it. They made it their jobs to actually be good. So they what play 30 games a week, or they play, I don't know, maybe not 30, but like maybe 20. Um, I think 30 is doable as well. So we keep forgetting that I play 2-3 games a week tops now, and this includes like TTS and real life games. Probably more TTS now. Um, there are guys out there who play an enormous amount of games with different factions. They get to experiment. With my 3 games a week, I play Tyranids now, so it's a strong faction, fine, but it's still necessary to get like the intricacies of all the matchups that you play. With 3 games a week, with like limited group of people that you usually play with, you'll get to play against 3, 4, 6 armies maybe, but you won't get to play them all. And there will be a situation where you think you are prepared. You go to a tournament with high expectations because you have a strong army and you've played against a bunch of other people, and then you face an army that you haven't faced before, and you lose. And again, that's too high expectations. You've sunk too deep because you've been watching those guys on the internet who make it look so easy, right? They are knowledgeable. They play a lot. Uh, they move armies on the table like you do, but somehow they win and you don't. So this is related to that sinking too deep. I'm a victim of that as well because I have this thing that I do a hobby to a maximum. Like if I pick a hobby, I sink in it. I cannot have 2 hobbies at the same time. So for example, if I play Warhammer 40k, I usually don't play computer games just because I don't know, my attention just cannot go into 2 separate things at the same time. So right now I don't have any computer games on my computer because I'm just hyped about 40k. When I went on my break, I didn't play any 40k. I installed WoW and I played World of Warcraft all the time. And this was like I bought books, I bought I don't know posters, stuff related to 40k. I even ordered a T-shirt related to 40k. Sorry, to World of Warcraft, but nothing related to 40k. So, but that's me. I don't know. Maybe you can relate to that. But so I tend to sink too deep, and then there's this sinusoidal line of your interest. So when you reach the peak, this is like the peak point of your interest, and then from the peak, the only way it can go, it goes down. So you start losing interest. You start losing um, the will to do that, and you start going away from the hobby. And again, since it's a sinusoidal line, it will bounce out and you will come back. But the question is, how big is the gap between one peak and the second peak? It could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be more. There are a lot of factors that affect that. Inability to compete with top players. It could mean a couple of things. It could mean that someone cannot compete because they are on a too low skill level, or I think related to the previous answer, they couldn't get enough of high skill players to play, and they were getting burnt out because they were playing the same people from their community over and over and over, and it simply got boring, which could also lead to burnout. Boredom, lack of money, inability to travel to events. Yeah, this is in certain countries it's especially difficult because it becomes costly. I think I listened to Adam Camilleri talk about his career on one of the podcasts, I think it was Game Changers with Steve Joel, and Adam went into the details of how much it costs to travel uh, around Australia, or even from Australia to different countries to play a tournament. And Jesus Christ, that's a lot of money. Like it's holiday money that you save up for a longer time. So I can completely understand that. So yeah, the comments that people gave. Um, I don't think we can afford to read all of them because it's going to make a very long episode. But I'm showing them on the screen so you can read for yourself, or you can pause the video when you watched it as a video form, and you can read them yourself. So, but maybe the shorter ones. I was very close to rage quit when my faction didn't get the psychic awakening supplement. So yeah, remember this is October last year, so psychic awakening was a thing. Um, and yeah, you can definitely feel bummed out when your faction doesn't get an update. So others are this meta creep again. There are factions that are getting a lot of attention, a couple of supplements, and there are factions that are getting none. And you just get impatient, and you have limited choices. You can either keep on doing what you're doing, you be you, and you can keep on playing the faction with mixed results, or you can swap factions and just have a couple of armies, or you could quit the game completely. So this does lead to frustration and eventually to burnout. Play 40 Cases second edition very actively. Um, yeah, the release schedule and the way GW releases things wasn't easy, but I got fed up with GW's bullshit. So a very honest answer. I just recently got back to 40k after about 10 years break. So as I said, the plastic crack is very addictive. And ninth edition was advertised to me, by friends as relatively balanced. Now Drukarian Mechanicum happened. So yeah, it happens in cycles. We are in the Tyranid cycle right now, so I completely understand. Competitive playing is being quite burdening at times. The sheer pressure and time needed to keep game knowledge updated while dealing with some players' toxicity, cheating, and generally unsporty behavior can lead to periods of giving up on 40k as a whole. Yep. About toxicity, cheating, I cannot really say much because the Polish community, in general, um, does not have many examples of those. I haven't met many examples of those. But the argument about the time needed to keep up with the rules, to keep up with the game knowledge, as someone rightfully wrote, yeah, absolutely. You cannot just walk into a game and expect to win out of the blue. You need some preparation. You need some reading up. You need to know what plays. What rules are prevalent. So, for example, now after the balancing data slate, you build armies differently. You build armies. You don't have to worry about indirect shooting, for example, as much as before. Earlier, I know that Danny from here in Poland, Danny Porter, who plays GSC, he would field 30 aberrants just because they were the most resilient thing that his book had, and they had the staying power to actually survive shooting from Tau for a turn or something like that, or more if they were not on the table. So, so yeah, you need to realize those things because if you just enter the hobby and you take GSC, for example, and you take the models that you like and go to play a competitive game, let's remember we're talking competitive. If you go to play a competitive game, you could be miserable and horribly let down if you face, for example, Tau and they just shoot you off the table. So yeah, absolutely, I agree. Having to use the best armies to compete rather than the armies I enjoy. Exactly. So that's again the question: do you want to be competitive, or do you want to just enjoy yourself? Competitive can be can mean enjoying yourself as long as you get to win. But in order to win, you need to forget about uh, you know you need to be unscrupulous. I think that's the word. So you have to like if you play competitive, there's no holds barred. So you probably pick the strongest. You go into the tournament, and in order to compete with the top players And those celebrities that I mentioned, they can afford to swap armies freely, and very often they come from like gaming houses where they have a plethora of armies, and they just pick the flavor of the month. Like, today I'm gonna play this, but tomorrow I'm gonna play that. So they have the tools to do that. For the majority of like average Joes like myself, um, you cannot really do that. So um, that's again connected to the topic I mentioned earlier. If you invest a lot of money into a top meta army and then meta changes and you're left with a mid-tier army, absolutely you can feel burnt out because of that. The Army of Renown books literally made me decide not to spend another dollar on GW. I would be interested to find out more about that because the Army of Renown, for the most part, uh, looked on paper as if they were supposed to give more flavor to the game. I think the most notorious was the Crasher Stampede, which was the Army of Renown. That sort of turned the game upside down for a while. So yeah, but for example, Bellacor's Disciples, I love that Army of Renown, or the Deathwatch one. Again, I maybe not the strongest, but I do love them. So if done with the right degree of power and fluff together, they could be amazing. But there were times where these sort of affected the meta a lot. I don't want to say they broke the game, but they affected the meta a lot. GW was responsive to feedback, and now it's not so much. Basic problems left unfixed for whatever reason from the studio. So it seems that since October, GW has done some moves to go in the right direction. Sorry for the squeaky chair. So it seems like GW has come to the conclusion that updates need to be more frequent. So we have the balancing data slates, chapter approved, and so on. Now they announced that the points are going to be posted on the internet, and so on. There's still a lot of room for improvement, definitely. Meta, is it in a perfect place? Absolutely not. However, there are players who say that it's the best since a while. So again, it depends with whom you speak. But yeah, there is room for improvement for GW. Back in October, I can see where this comment comes from, or came from. And there are still, even today, a lot of basic problems that are unfixed. Again, as I said, I'm not going to read through all of those, but you can pause the video at any time and just read through, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of stuff to relate to. So I'm going to slowly scroll. GW prices are high, so I cannot afford an army quickly. There are solutions to that again, but I'm not going to endorse them here. But I don't think there is a cheap hobby. Like, seriously, photography, Jesus, fishing. Oh my god, my dad does fishing, and the amount of money that he sinks into that hobby, he hasn't caught enough fish in his life to repay for his investments. So so I really don't think, like, I don't know, cycling, snowboarding, skiing, whatever, traveling, it all eats up a lot of money. So I'm not saying that this isn't a correct comment, because I completely understand where this person is coming from and how this could also burn you out because you want to play but you simply cannot afford. But there are some solutions that I'm going to mention later. So yeah, again, I'm not saying that this is not right, and I'm not demeaning this. We'll get back to it in a few moments. Much worse fluff. Yeah. GW, do something about it. Because fluff is important to a lot of people, and retcons and so on, rewriting fluff doesn't always work with the fan base. What else? Even filthy casuals tend to go competitive for no reason in friendly pickup games. Yeah, like myself. But this is, as I said, this is oftentimes related to the fact that you play one game every 2 weeks, and you want it to be quality time, and you want to win. Because you want to have good mood for the next couple of days. It works like charging a battery, and if you don't win, you are depleted, and in the next couple of days you're going to be miserable. Unfortunately, if you win, it can happen that it happens at the cost of someone else feeling miserable. So we're going to talk about that in the next episodes. Be mindful of what you're doing to your opponent. Be mindful of how you speak to your opponent. Be mindful of of what you want to convey and what this game is to you. Maybe you need to take a step back and think, as this filthy casual who goes competitive, is it worth to go competitive? Should you go competitive in every single game? Treat games as training. This was my approach when I came back now, since August. So there were games where I was salty because I really felt like I should have won. But in general, if I convince myself that those games are training games, and then when I go to a tournament, I see the payoff from those training games because I actually win a game at a tournament or something like that, then yeah, I feel that it was worth it and it compensates for the losses along the way. Um, I don't like to play competitively, and not many players play open plays, crusade, narrative. Yeah, that's something that I see as well. Narratives and crusade. I don't know a single person probably who plays that. Narrative, the same. I think we need more of those. Maybe some campaigns. Again, we'll get to the solutions to that in a moment. Loving every second of it. Burnout, no way. Good for you, brother. Again, I'm happy that there are answers like that because it's not all doom and gloom. There are also people who are thriving, in the hobby, which is also fantastic and important to see. Rushing to get models painted and being too hard on myself with standards, it's the same as playing competitively. You set high standards for yourself and you somehow don't make them. It's the same here. Like the pile of shame, the I think this is the most used expression in the hobby. The pile of shame is growing. You set a deadline, but you don't meet it. You set a certain standard, but you don't meet it because you're in a rush. And it just burns you down slowly, and it can lead to the point where you have an issue with yourself because you haven't you've made a commitment but you didn't meet that commitment, and you feel bad about it, and this could also lead to burnout. So yeah, let's see what solutions people offer in a moment. Interest in other hobbies, so less time and fun playing 40k. Yeah, so that's natural. As I said, this sinusoidal graph if we made one, it will show you that interest peaks and then drops and peaks and drops, and it goes in cycles. Got tired of constant rule changes. Yeah, it's very long, so I'm just leaving it on the screen for you to read. So you can find out for yourself. I assure you that I've read all those comments, so it's not like I'm skipping this and forgetting. It's just that it's really long, and I want to move on. So, but common themes, right? Toxic players, people screaming that the game is stupid. I hear it all the time as well. That XYZ army is for monkeys because it plays so easily, apparently, or something like that. It really, it doesn't help, especially if it's your army and you hear that it's very easy to navigate, it's very easy to drive. So you hear it so often that you start believing it, and then you go to a tournament, and now what happens? Either you win and you feel bad because it's an army for monkeys, or you lose and you feel bad because you didn't win with an army for monkeys. What the hell? So an advice to everyone in the community: refrain from comments like that because it doesn't really. Yeah, we understand that you're a good player, but there is no need really to rub it in, like nah, simply give this up. Poor rules in general. 50% of painting is mind-numbing basis creation for cool effects. That's why I don't like to start painting new models, and I prefer to tweak the old ones that I have started some time ago. The pile of shame is too big, and too few games on a high skill level. So yeah, if you want to play competitively, you want to grow, you want to get bigger and bigger, TTS is a wonderful solution to that if you're willing to accept the randomness of dice and so on. But this game is all about randomness, so what the hell? And if you convince yourself that those games are training games, then TTS is a wonderful tool to actually develop and grow and meet people on different skill levels. So yeah, that's something that I experience. Um, Toxicity of the player base. Again, I think I might be lucky and I haven't really felt a lot of toxicity, but you hear a lot about toxicity in games. Um, I don't know, maybe I haven't experienced it, but I might have been perceived as toxic because, at a 5 round tournament on the second day during the last game, if it's not going my way and the whole tournament has not gone my way, I might have been toxic to someone, and I admit that. It's a horrible thing that I'm working on. But sometimes emotions are stronger than common sense, simply. So if that ever happened, apologies to my opponents. Um, I'm good with it, so another positive one. I don't ever feel burnout from the hobby because there is just so many aspects to the hobby. If I feel burnt out from converting or paint or create terrain or play or lift build, watch backflips, there is too many facets for me to feel obliged to one. That's a wonderful comment as well. So as I said, not all is doom and gloom. So it is true that this is, and I realized this when I dropped the hobby and I started playing WoW, that I'm missing certain aspects of the previous hobby, so 40k. Like, one of the things that I do as a hobby is list building, for example. So, to an extent, building a character in WoW was similar, but then it didn't have that depth, it didn't have that, that something that brings me joy when I build a list. Then there are books, as the person rightfully wrote, backtraps, what have you, and just conversations about army performance, for example, or ideas for list building. There are so many things. Podcasts that I listen to podcasts. I devour podcasts when I walk my dog, for example. So for me, the biggest tragedy now is that I lost my headphones or my earphones, and I cannot listen to podcasts while I walk. And I suffer a lot because I feel that I have FOMO and I feel that I'm missing out on something. So a lot of things in the hobby that to enjoy. And thank you for whoever brought that comment because we need those positive ones as well. Fact 7th edition. We'll leave that without a comment. Okay, then the next question: how do you handle your 40k burnout? And this is, I think, the really valuable part because people in here provide suggestions on how to tackle burnout. And I think that this is really important, and this is the part that I wanted to show you, especially. However, some of those suggestions do not really help with 40k because they clearly and openly suggest play something else, which is also good if you can do that. Like, I cannot, as I said, I need to focus on one hobby strictly. But if you can, and you can have two hobbies at the same time and play, I don't know, Star Wars Legion or Infinity or something else and 40k at the same time, great. I envy you because I cannot do that. So, please let us know your methods. Those are, again, the open comments that I'm going to read out in a moment. I focus more on other aspects of the hobby. Exactly what the positive comment a couple of seconds ago mentioned. So painting, reading, podcasts, recording, and so on. I focus more on lore and fun games. Great. If you have people to do that with, fantastic. If you have, close friends that feel the same as you and you want to try something out, something new, Crusade, I hear that Crusade is one of the most fantastic ways of experiencing the game and having fun with your models, so give that a try, absolutely. There are podcasts, I hear the podcast is dead, but there is a podcast called Lorehammer, where there are guys who simply have fun with the lore and with themselves, and it's I know I listened to a couple of episodes of Tyranids, and it's just pure joy to listen to. So if you haven't seen that, go and listen to it because it's really good. But also reading books, reading codices, and so on. There are multiple ways to experience the lore, even without compromising your competitive edge, let's say. Keep on doing what I'm doing and improve it through practice. That's what I like because it's a constructive approach. Just baby steps, game after game. Have those repetitions, and with repetitions, will skill will come. Um, Another thing, if you play games with other people, make sure that you talk to them after the game. Don't just pack your models and shake hands and say bye. Have a conversation. Uh, Even if there is a player that you don't regard as a stronger one, for example, it's always good to get that other player's perspective. So be humble, ask for feedback, ask what went wrong, because you might actually hear something that would never cross your mind, or that would never come to your head. That maybe this play wasn't the best, or the choice of the size of the table could have helped you if you've chosen differently, or something like that. So we did that with Vitalis, for example, when we were recording the battle report that we are never going to publish because it came out horribly. But we had we sat down and we had that discussion on what could have been better in that matchup, and his knights probably would have won had he simply chosen the other side of the table, because he could deploy more aggressively and still be out of harm's way, because my units wouldn't be able to reach him, and he could just shoot me off the table like ducks. But he chose to hide his Castellan behind the ruin, so he chose the side where there was just this one big ass ruin, and Castellan could sit behind it. But what this meant for him is that for half of the game, the Castellan was stuck behind that ruin. He could hardly see, he could hardly move, and this probably cost him the game. So, little things like that. He thought that he was making the right choice. It wasn't an obvious mistake for him, but when we started talking about that, he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So you can get that from everyone, and especially if you get to play stronger players. If you have the chance to play people who are good in leagues or national teams, even their feedback will definitely improve your game. So make sure you collect that feedback and you listen humbly, because that can be very, very helpful. Change the army if you have to. Take my word and don't sell the old army. Get a new one, but don't sell the old one because you'll regret it. It also depends what your gaming circle is. So I am very lucky to be in that circle where there are people with plenty of armies, and no one really has an issue with borrowing an army to someone. So this happens at times, and maybe that's an option for you. Maybe you don't have to buy the new army, but you can borrow an army from someone or from a couple of people even, and just put it together and see whether it works for you or not. TTS is another option, as I said. It At the beginning I was sort of reluctant towards TTS because it sounded like a lot of hassle to get it configured, prepared, to have the maps, armies, everything, but it's actually extremely easy. And then the amount of time that you save on traveling, and again, in the Polish Discord you have the members of the national team, people who aspire to the national team. You can challenge them, you can play with them. I'm sure this is similar in other Discords as well. There are leagues organized and so on, so that you can sign up to, and you can play on TTS with any army, even the army that you cannot afford, and just see for yourself if the rules work for you, if the playstyle works for you. I don't think there is a better and cheaper way to test something than TTS. So if you haven't already given it a try, do. I strongly recommend it because you'd be surprised at how many opportunities it creates. So maybe change army virtually and not in real life. I set goals for myself. Again, a constructive approach that as a manager in a corporation I enjoy as well. So they don't have to be big goals. They don't have to be go to a major and win 4 games or 5 games. No, just go to an RTT and win 2. But let those be decisive wins, for example. Or I don't know, make a skewed army and try to win a tournament with a skewed army, or you know, get onto a team and try playing as a team. So there are different kinds of goals. Also, of course, there are different aspects of the hobby. So it could be, I don't know, goals for painting, like paint a model a week or paint 10 models a week, depending on how big the models are, of course. But you know, again, baby steps, and then maybe in with the future goals that you set for yourself should be bigger, more demanding, and so on. But do it gradually. Don't start with like an enormous goal that will be impossible to achieve at the beginning. Try with those small goals, and then let those goals grow as you go, because you'll see what you can afford. Um, I don't handle it well. Don't know how to handle it. So hopefully this our episode with Skari and this one helps you. I organize events. That's fantastic. That's great. That's like a completely different approach to what we've been talking about so far. Because organizing events gets you appreciation from the community, because people like events and people need events to come and show their skills, show their armies, to socialize and so on. But it's probably one of the least popular things in the hobby, because it requires responsibility. When you don't organize an event, you just come and play, there is absolutely no responsibility on you apart from maybe sending in the list, but and bringing the army and being on time. But when you organize events, you need to have a venue, you need to have a rules book, you need to have, again, we can start with a small event. It could be a narrative event. In here in Gdynia, where I live, we have a shop where there are tournaments for 500 points, 600 points, 1000 points, overnight tournaments, and then 2000 points. So you can start with a 500-point tournament to just get the gist of what organizing an event is. And I'll tell you this, those 500-point events are actually as popular, if not more, than the big ones. So many people are willing to come, many people are willing to bring a smaller army because it plays completely differently. And like, I don't know, an army of 500 points of a less popular army can do better than 500 points of Custodes, for example, because 500 points of Custodes would be 3 models. I'm joking, but you know what I mean. So organizing events could be, involving, absorbing. It gets you the appreciation of the community, and you learn a lot, right? You learn organization. I I cherish this story because Joker, who's my co-host on Contact Lost, he, at some point I wanted to bring him to the company where I work, and I needed to convince my boss, who was hiring, like project managers and so on. I needed to convince him that Joker is the right person to. I don't even know if I told Joker or not. I wanted to convince my manager that Joker is the right person to hire. So like we had a coffee with my manager, and he asked like, so who is this guy? I looked at his CV. It's okay, but it doesn't scream project management. So what can you tell me about it? And I was like, well, dude, you really like the stuff that he does, the work that he puts into organizing events, for example. It doesn't say in the CV, but he organizes events, like massive events for hundreds of people, and and there's all the logistics of getting tables there, or getting terrain there, inviting people, creating rules, and so on and so on. I tell you, this is like a huge cooperation, and it's like managing a project. And I don't know if this convinced him, this particular argument, or maybe something else, but Joker got the job. So, maybe it could lead to some career developments for you. I'm joking, of course, it's just an example. But organizing events definitely adds to the overall experience, can teach you something. And, yeah, people will treat you as this backbone pillar of your local community. So give it a go. Coaching and advice. Yep. Again, it could be done through the official means. There are there are a bunch of coaching services out there that you can use, or use that feedback session and coaching from your opponent to find out what could have gone better. People we tend to sit and analyze stuff, for example, the next day after the game, and it's all good. But if you don't get feedback from your opponent, you're still analyzing just your own thoughts. You have no new input, no new perspective. So make sure that you speak to the person that you lost against. Make sure that you spoke to the person that you won against, because even that win could have looked differently, or maybe could have been played out differently, or maybe there was a thing that your opponent thought you didn't do that well, and maybe there was something that you could do to get 20-0 and not 18-2 or something like this. So yeah, absolutely, it's worth talking about your performance. I referee events instead, so organize events, referee events, absolutely, that's a completely different side of the hobby. Again, refereeing might not be so popular because, again, it requires knowledge, it requires skill, it requires patience. So there are a lot of requirements towards a person who wants to be a referee. But I hear, like we interviewed Neil Kerr, who sits in Sweden now, I think, and he moved from playing the game. He still plays, but he moved from playing the game to refereeing, and he said that it was a great experience and a good change. So maybe that's something for you, especially if you're good with rules, if you have good memories for rules, if you have good understanding of rules and so on. Then absolutely you should give it a go. And again, the community will appreciate it, because at least in Poland there used to be a time when there was shortage of referees. So tournament organizers usually served as referees as well. Now it's different. Now there are people who volunteer to do that, but I don't know if that's the same in all the communities. So yeah. I switched to other systems. It is an option. Taking a break from my hobby and games is the only thing that works for me. It worked for me as well. Like, not playing a game for a year made me crave for many things, for wins. I like the aesthetic of this hobby, but I especially missed the people, and missed those conversations, those chat rooms. Discord was established when I was away, so I didn't even know that I missed that. But Discord is great. So yeah. Other aspects of life. Play historicals, change game. I play less. I take breaks on hobby. There are people who are having a good time, which is fantastic as well. Take a little break. I found finding like-minded and similar players to bring enjoyment back. Agreed. One of the most pleasurable, if that's a word, enjoyable parts of the hobby for me was and is traveling to events with a bunch of people. So back in March, for example, I traveled all the way down to Krakow in Poland with two guys from Toxicity, and I didn't know them really well. Like we agreed that we were going to go like a group of 5, but eventually Joker couldn't make it and one other guy couldn't make it. So we just traveled, the 3 of us. We didn't really know each other well, but we clicked so much on the way to the tournament in the car, and then in between, like in the evening between the first game and the second game, when we went to eat something and have drinks and so on. We just enjoyed our company so much that we have another team tournament later in the year, and we already agreed that we were going to be on the same team because we just liked our company so much. So by the way, all the best to Wojtek and Łukasz, with whom I traveled to Krakow. But yeah, but if you have the opportunity to maybe participate in a team tournament and just get a team and see what the team experience is like, where you get to go through the pay rings and do the calculation of how you are going to perform against other armies, and you get to talk about that with people from your team, and then you travel together, you experience this together, you share the responsibility together. You might find that these people are like-minded, that they share the love for the hobby, or even more, and you can make even long-lasting friendships thanks to that. But if you focus only on singles events, you will never experience that. So team events would be one of the things that I strongly recommend, or traveling together to events and so on. Waiting, it goes in time. I take a break. Waiting for better rule writing. So everyone speaks of a new edition. So yeah, I understand. But remember, this was back in October. So maybe we are slowly getting there with the thing is, the books that come out are fantastic. They're like they have good internal balance and so on. It's a shame that they are just so much better than whatever is or has been there for a longer while. But yeah, those data slates and so on, maybe like the last data slate, uh, that you might have seen our episode about it. But I also spoke to other people. People say that the changes were unexpected and they were good. Finally, so there is someone in GW who has the heart in the right place and the brain in the right place, and they are making good decisions. Probably not writing codexes, but at least balancing them later on. So yeah, well, let's see where this goes. Um, da, 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 da. Yeah, I play on TTS with someone on a higher level. International sparrings. So if you have the ambition and aspiration, you might want to find out what your national team is doing. And maybe you won't get immediately accepted to the national team, but you can spar with people from the national team and show yourself, show your skills. If you defeat 1, 2, 3 players from the national team or have a close game with them, you might get noticed, and this might open some new possibilities for you. So don't shy away from the top range players, and I tell you, even from my perspective. So here we have some names, right? Vlad, Pumba, Tyfus. So those are top players in Poland. But I also reached out to like Nick Nanavati or other people, that I wanted to collaborate with or invite to record an episode with, like Scary, for example. Those people are surprisingly approachable. Like when I spoke about celebrities earlier on, when you have celebrities in real life, they are hidden behind all the social media. They have probably social media managers, blah blah blah. So they are really hard to reach. Here, the celebrities within this hobby are actually quite reachable and approachable. So, you know, if you have a question, just send it to them. You might not get an answer, you might not get an answer immediately, but the majority of those people actually do reply. They do read their social media. So if you can, just reach out, and who knows? Who knows what this might bring? Um, dum dum dum. What else? Taking a break. I take a break, discuss it with my teammates. So again, important to have teammates. I just take a good long break from other hobbies like computer gaming and boarding. Yeah. Okay, so that's in line. Moving on to the next one. Have you been successful at overcoming hobby burnout? So I don't want to say that an overwhelming yes, but a strong yes, which is good, and I'm happy for you people. No, um, yeah, this still needs working on, and partially we'll have some answers again from people. And now this is that just very human, right? I have ups and downs, but never really get full back on track. This could be related to so many things, even time of the year. Like I see in myself that I feel down towards the last quarter of the year, and I need much more energy to sort of find enjoyment in different things, not just this hobby, but other stuff as well. For example, work. End of the year is also the time when, for example, in my company there are like end year appraisals and so on, and you need to go through that as a manager. That's an ordeal that you don't enjoy. Plus, if you play a game of 40k that you lose, you have a lousy week, simply. So those would be the downs. But then New Year comes. After New Year, it's like days are longer and so on. And it, however funny it may sound, it does affect how you feel and how you approach games as well. So that I would say that's very human. Um, I don't think I can deal with burnout once and for all. Again, from a professional standpoint, uh, sometimes people just need change, and or a break from something. And the healthiest thing is to, because you could even feel burnout if you go to tournaments and you keep on winning, and you could also feel burnout in that situation. So my advice would be maybe sometimes you have to take a break and stop winning. You'll see that nothing happens. You'll see that life doesn't end. if you don't win. You can lose, you can take a break, you can not go to a tournament or not play a game. In the future, we will talk about those mood swings and the mood elevator. So I'm going to try and explain to you how to read your mood and how to behave with certain um, moods that you can be in, and how to work on your mood to improve it. But if you recognize that your mood is not right, just don't play that game. Just, apologize to your opponent if it's at a tournament, and just say, hey buddy, it's important for me to get back the energy, the mojo, whatever. And I'm just gonna sit this one out, and nothing's gonna happen. Yeah, you're not gonna be top of the tournament, big deal, but you're gonna feel better about yourself. So that's an option. Um, this big one, I'm just gonna leave on the screen for you to read. Although I do see some important bits. Lots of negative feelings lead to me spending my time, my money, and my precious ADHD focus on doing other things that I can approach with a sense of optimism. To bypass that, oh wait, that's about it. And burn out too many times with armies or units being made pointless or indeed sacked off entirely. I love the lore, but why bother wasting time and money painting a cool fluffy thing if really all it's going to do is sit in a display case for another 5 years? The question also is, who are you doing the hobby for? And you have to ask yourself that. Are you doing the hobby for yourself, or are you doing the hobby for others? Are you doing the hobby to show yourself to others as a competitive player, a successful player? Are you painting your armies for others to see and appraise them and to pat you on the back because your army looks nice? Or are you doing it for yourself because it gives you the sense of fulfillment and so on? So sometimes it's good to, again, take a step back and think, who are you trying to make happy? And you should be always on the first spot. If that is not satisfactory, then yeah, other opportunities, other things need to be explored. But I say you are on the first place, and you always need to think about yourself first. So you're doing that stuff to feel better yourself, not to please anyone else. I've taken time out. I kind of struggle to find a way to deal with it. I hope your podcast will give me some ideas. So yeah, but in a moment I'll list some ideas that I didn't see in here. Motivation to compete or achieve a goal. So we've mentioned goals. I wait for new codices. Maybe Tao will play something. Oh boy, oh boy. I hope you're enjoying, or you've been enjoying, your Tao codex. Because from what I hear, it wasn't that bad. Sometimes I just take a bit of a break, painting and focusing on lore. Yeah, okay. Anything else? What do you do to stay away from hobby burnout? I focus on painting and assembling models. Yeah, that's a thing that you can do that. Or another game, or hobby even. So we've covered that. Set small goals. Try to include my children. That wasn't very helpful to me because I had a losing streak against Joker, against some other people, and then I've put up my table. I've been encouraging my son to play with me. He's 8, or will be 8 soon, and I've put up the table. I've put up the terrain. We played with simplified rules. My son was playing Space Wolves, and I was playing a down Tyrannid's list, and he beat me. That really didn't help me. I'm joking. I mean, half joking, because it didn't help me because I lost again. But on the other hand, my son was thrilled, and he was enjoying it a lot. And seeing the happiness in him helped me as well. So that passion in him compensated for yet another loss. So yeah, maybe try to include your children. And while we are on the topic of family, I also want to expand a little bit on that, because one of my issues when I quit the hobby the last time was lack of time to play. And something magical happened when I came back, because through the willpower, the perseverance, through demonstrating that this hobby means a ton to me, I showed my wife that it is extremely important for me and for my well-being, for my mental health and so on. And my wife sort of changed from looking at me like a weirdo at times to actually supporting me, which is extremely important as well. But this comes with time. I envy the people whose wives are completely on board with their hobbies and with their like geeky side or nerdy side. uh, with my wife, we that's one thing that we don't have in common. Like she is more into reality and biographies and factual literature. I'm more into fantasy, like yourselves probably, more into fantasy, sci-fi, and so on. So I try to escape from reality in my hobbies. But my wife changed her approach. It came with time. It came also with our son growing up and requiring maybe a little bit less attention. That she appreciates now how much the hobby means to me, and she gives me the time, the space to enjoy it. I go to tournaments more frequently. I go to team tournaments. I can record the podcast, and all that stuff. If you think about it, it consumes a lot of time that potentially could be family time as well. But we learned to operate in that rhythm where we swap time. I get my free time, but then I give her her free time, so she gets to go away. I don't know, for a coffee with friends or to a party with friends or something, and we trade time, as I said, and this works. So if you are in that situation when or where you don't really get to enjoy your hobby because there are other obligations, family, and so on and so on. With time, you can change this. So just be patient and work towards convincing your family how important this thing is to you, and you'll see effects in time. I'm a living example that it is possible. Uh, I've joined non-competitive leagues, started playing Kill Team. Again, fantastic idea. Non-competitive league, you can make friends, enjoy your models, um, maybe use some models that you haven't used for a longer while. Also, on this, using models that are not popular, I strongly encourage this. Try to maybe not netlist. Try to use models that that don't immediately come to mind, aren't in the top lists, because again, this might catch someone off guard, or someone might not be surprised to see a model like that, might not even know what this model does. Even when you explain it to them at the beginning of the game, they just don't appreciate what a little tech piece, that's something that you're bringing is, and it might win you games. So don't be afraid of experimenting, especially at RTTs and friendly games. Experiment all that you want. Don't take the first netlist from the internet. Just build something yourself, and if you win, you'll see that it gives you a stronger shot of endorphins than a list that you've taken off the internet and you didn't really put much thinking into it. Don't play or participate in the hobby. That's an option, but we're not here to recommend this one. Manageable to paint piles, so yeah, those little steps and little goals. Um, I understood I'm never going to play competitive 40k at this stage of my life, so I play for fun with people I like to hang out with. That's another possibility. Maybe competitive is just not something that you can afford right now. Maybe in the future. Maybe you have some limitations because of like family. Like my son has Asperger's and is very clingy, so I cannot really play like 5 nights a week because I need to play with my son and spend time with him. But I also see that over time, when he was 5, it was very difficult to be able to even invite someone to come over and play. Now he's 8, he spends time more on his own. Still not like a teenager, but more. And it's much easier to get that playing time, for example, on a Saturday or Sunday evening, to get someone to come over and play. So be patient, and it will come. Switch between projects. So yeah, maybe start like little 500-point armies for local tournaments, and you can organize those tournaments yourself as well. Stay positive and keep learning. take breaks, do many things and improve, avoid toxicity, which is not always possible, but you can try. Skip some tournaments. So exactly as I said, you don't need those winning streaks all that time. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You're doing this for yourself, and yeah, that's simply it. You're supposed to be enjoying it. Don't try to chase the 40k train. This is again true in many ways. I remember there were players back when I started my hobby. Um, there was a guy in our local meta, Bagley, who was playing his metal sisters. Like he was the only guy playing sisters because they were really hard to acquire, and he just loved his army. Right, he just stuck to it for the good and the bad. Losses, wins didn't matter. He experimented with the lists. He tried out some Forge World models, um, but he stuck to his army through thick and thin. And eventually, he started being successful with them just because of this, of those repetitions of knowing the army through and through. And this is also extremely important. So remember, picking up a new army doesn't automatically mean that you're going to win. When you watch battle reps like of Mani Chima, for example, and you see that he plays a different army in every bat rep, and he takes a different army to every single tournament. It almost convinces you that you could do the same. I cannot. I know that I cannot. I cannot just pick up an army and play great with that army. So I like to believe that the majority of people cannot really do something like this. It takes time to get into the army, and even once you get into the army, it doesn't mean that you've mastered it, because there are so many different matchups that you have to face that there are so many armies in the game. You need to know how to counter every single one of them, and Bagley did just that. He played against so many people that eventually he knew how to counter the strengths of every army that he was facing, and that's something that again comes with time, comes with experience, but you need to make that time sacrifice, so to say, and you need to stick to that one army. And to some of my friends, it will sound funny coming from me because I tend to switch armies often, but I think I've learned my lesson now, and I'm not going to bunny hop from army to army now, because I realize what I just said, that you need to play at least one game against every other army with your faction to understand what the faction limitations are. So yeah, we actually got to the end of the survey. So I hope that this was more informative than our previous episode. And yeah, many of you came to me. Give me a second. Many of you came to me, to us, asking for ideas on how to tackle burnout. And give me a second. I think I have some notes that I haven't really even utilized in the past. But one of the things that I strongly recommend is explore different aspects of the hobby. So something that was mentioned already. The hobby has so many levels on which you can engage with it. You can play it, you can paint it, you can collect it, you can get engaged in buying and selling, because that's something that I found was very addictive to me before I had a break. So maybe this brings you fun, just finding bargains and buying cheap and selling expensive. I mean, selling for a lot of money. But there is also this whole social media part. As I said, with enough perseverance and with enough strong will, you can get some media presence, and there are so many things that haven't been really explored yet, like, I don't know, Snapchats, TikToks, and so on. Maybe that's a new niche that nobody has explored yet. There are podcasts that you can listen to, but you can create as well. So like ours, for example, and you can learn a shitload of stuff doing it. So some graphics design, OBS, stuff like that could be helpful also outside of the hobby. So think about that. Battle reps, watching, but also recording. Once you start recording, you'll see how demanding it is, and it teaches you to appreciate uh, the content that is already out there, because the guys who deliver high quality content, holy shit, it must be related to some hefty investment as well, into gear, into preparation, into lighting, into microphones, and so on and so on. But you only really realize that once you've tried yourself. So do try yourself, fail, learn from that fail. Pick yourself up and try again. That's a recommendation for life. It's not only the recommendation for the hobby, but yeah, fail and learn from fails. Um, what else? I mentioned already. Uh, okay, other levels of the hobby. Painting is one thing. Photography is another. There are so many, websites where you can post cool photographies of armies, of models. Instagram is full of that, but you can invent new ways of taking photos of your army. So those could be artistic. Those could be like, you could spread some smoke and take some pictures, and this could really be something that helps you tweak your photography skills, for example, and then you can use those skills for something else as well. Um, I spoke about team tournaments, and I know that for many people this might not seem like the most approachable thing, because I don't know, you have trouble making friends, or you have trouble finding a team. But if you can, do try this out. It's a completely different kind of playing than singles. There is this sense of camaraderie that you get from being in a team, traveling together, making arrangements together, sacrifices together, and then drinking, eating, and so on together. Painting armies together in the last moment, like in the last evening before the game. There are, I think Polish people, like Polish players, are notorious for bringing unpainted models to tournaments, and then the entire team sits and paints, which is also like something that gives you that sense of closure and camaraderie. And then you learn about different aspects of competitive play in a team setting, because you need to analyze the pairings. It teaches you to assess the strengths and weaknesses of your army against other armies, because you need to calculate how well you're going to fare against a different army, and you need to inform your potential captain whether you're a shield army or a sword army. Can you take this? Can you play against that? And so on and so on. So it's really thorough, and I strongly recommend it, because it's a fantastic experience. As I said, completely different than singles, and it's very educational as well. Um, I'm trying to find my notes on some other ideas, because definitely that isn't everything that I wanted to share. Okay. As I mentioned, in here in Gdynia we have a shop that is not like a GW shop, so FLGS, but it's a shop that sells different kinds of minis, among others GW minis. Think of maybe, like, find out what events they organize, or maybe they don't organize. Maybe they should. Do they have space? If they do, maybe you can establish some sort of cooperation with them to have like regular tournaments happening there. Maybe you could be the organizer. With your organized events, you will need to market them to people. So you need to go to social media. You need to create an event. You need to advertise that event to people to bring the crowd into that place. And it will be a win-win situation for you and for the shop. The shop will have new customers, and you will have players to play with. So think about that. Maybe it's time to become proactive and to move from the receiving end, where you go to tournaments that have been organized by someone, and try to organize something yourself. Again, the community will absolutely appreciate you. If you have problems with the hobby side, so painting, the pile of shame is growing, and so on and so on, try and set yourself a plan. Give it a structure. So I'm going to start with 5 models a week, then 10 models a week, or something like this. Or time it. Set yourself a deadline, a week, a month, and so on. We have this wonderful, fantastic member of the community here in the north of Poland, Alice, who like within our group on Facebook, she creates name of the month, like hashtag name of the month, I'll paint dot dot dot, and then you enter like April, in April I'll paint, or in May I'll paint, and people just share the models that they have currently assembled or they are currently working on, and this is like external motivation for you to actually do it, because you show a model at the beginning of the month that you're working on, and then people will be expecting that at the end of the month you'll post a picture of a finished model. Try organizing something like that in your local group on Facebook. Maybe, start an event. People will start, like, every single post that Alice creates has like 100 of entries underneath it, with people posting pictures, like, before and after, stuff like that. Maybe that's an idea that you can follow. So yeah, for this hobby side, that would be my recommendation. Just get engaged with the community more. That is always beneficial. People will appreciate anyone who comes up with an initiative, and they will contribute to that initiative, I'm sure, because I've seen that live. I've seen Joker organizing tournaments. I've seen Alice organizing those painting events. Again, I spoke about the cooperation with the shops. The cooperation could be not only about gaming, it could be about painting events. So, maybe um, if you know anyone who paints well, maybe that person could show some techniques to potential people. So you could gather around the table and see how he does it, and then take a model and try for yourself. That definitely brings in the crowd to the shop that we have here in the north of Poland. You could organize, uh, we have this bits flea market. So if you have a group of people in your community that collect models, they will always have leftovers, and those leftovers might actually be something that you need. So maybe it's a good idea to organize something like a flea market and exchange those. So yeah, there are multiple ways in which you can interact with the community. Multiple ways how you can interact with your local FOGS or local shop, whatever that might be. Try to explore those. Maybe you'll have an idea that I haven't come up with yet. Joker does a lot of, or puts a lot of effort into bringing new people into the hobby. So he organizes, like, there is one evening in the week where he does rules introduction, and he invites people and he shows with minis, what the fighting phase looks like, or what the shooting phase looks like, or what the psychic phase looks like. And it draws attention because, less experienced people come and learn something, and people, who have not been exposed to the game very much, or are just learning and finding out what the game is, they uh, get a demonstration of what the game looks like, and get a demonstration of what the community is like as well. And that's extremely important if you think about it, because the external perception of the hobby is that it's a geeky, nerdy sort of thing. Competitive players are toxic and so on, and if suddenly you get a player who who is open, who explains the rules, who wants to invite you into a hobby, and that is great value that we need to foster. Painting tutorials, I mentioned. We organized something called laid back gaming, which was basically a tournament just for fun. And we didn't even call it tournament, we called it laid back gaming. So anyone could come with an army and play whatever they wanted with whatever models they wanted. The only limit was the point limit. And there were no rules, or very limited rules, or just the rule book rules, no additional home rules, and so on and so on. Bring what you want and just play it. And it was a great success. People were really happy to finally be able to bring whatever they wanted, not the top of the range models, or top, the strongest models. And people had great fun, great games, laid back, and nobody came back home disappointed. And an idea to consider as well, tournaments with army swaps. We used to do that in Poland, where there were tournaments or meetings where people would bring their armies, they would play against each other, and then they would swap armies and try to play the army of their opponent. might sound weird, but it's actually very educational. And firstly you get to see what the army does, and then you get to swap armies, and uh, you get to capitalize on the strengths of your opponent's army. Really cool, something that you might want to try to spice up your events potentially. Um, and last but not least, I already mentioned TTS. So if you haven't tried it yet, do give it a try, because it's fairly simple to set up. It gives a lot of satisfaction because you can train any army that you want. All of them are available on different kinds of terrain. You could play GW style, you could play ITC style, you could play player place terrain, you could play WTC terrain. Everything is available. The markers are available, the missions are available in-game. Everything is so simple that you wouldn't believe it. You have to try it to believe it. So give TTS a chance if you haven't already. Right. I think that's it for now. I've made it extremely long already, so I'll finish here. I will be very keen to get your feedback on this. Like, what do you think about my thoughts, my suggestions about the survey itself? Um, the survey is now closed, so you can't contribute to it anymore, but I'll maybe in a couple of months I'll try to organize another one like that, so maybe our outreach will be bigger and we will get more respondents. It will also, be an indicator of what the meta is like, because I think the moods of people depend a lot on meta and the power creep. So if the power creep is gone, don't think it's gonna happen, but meta could be in a better place. If it's in a good place, then probably we will get more positive, constructive answers. If not, we will get more of those negative feedbacks, but all of them are extremely important. I really think that GW does and analyzes surveys like that as well. I know that they do those surveys because I completed them myself, and I really hope that they read through them the way we did in here. So I scrolled through the entire thing. Again, pause if you want to read something specific. I hope that you find something that you can relate to in that episode. Again, leave a like, subscribe, definitely read a comment, because we read them all. We try to reply to all of them as well. And yeah, join us for the next episode. I don't really do much to advertise those late night tweaks. And for now, it's been quite hard to find one day when I can broadcast these, but definitely they're going to happen once a week. And then we have this once a week um, episode of Contact Lost, of course. So do follow, do wait for the episode, and let us know what you want to hear about next. With that, I thank you, and until next time, bye guys.